Well, pleased to say we're joined now by children's author Sachdev Patel. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Just a couple of things in Emma's report there. First of all, there's only 1% of children's books in the last year having a black and ethnic minority main character. Does that shock you?
It does shock me. I imagined it to be low, but I didn't imagine it to be that low. And I think it's really important for children to see themselves reflected in the books that they read. You know, children's books are often the starting point for children to start imagining the places that they might go, the people that they might be, that they might meet, and who they might be beyond the settings of what's happening in their real lives. And if BME children don't see themselves reflected in a diverse range of story settings, then I think we risk them limiting their imaginations and their futures.
Why do you think it is so low? Is it because of a lack of BME authors? Or is it a lack of imagination amongst all authors in terms of trying to get better diversity into their books? Why is it so low?
I think it might be a bit of both. I think there is a lack of BME authors, but I also think that mainstream authors that want to write about BME issues sometimes face criticism for doing so. The co-author of my book is of Jewish heritage, and we wrote the book together. And that, you know, it doesn't mean that just because you're not from a certain ethnic group that you can't feature those characters quite strongly in your books.
Is there an issue as well with the publishing world in general, in terms of representation at that level, the people who are commissioning books, reading through scripts and things like that? Scripts, not scripts, what do you call them? Drafts.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've read about. And funnily enough, I actually had this book, even though I'm based here, published in India first, before being able to publish it in the UK, because I didn't have access to the same publishing houses here as I did over there. So I've read that that is an issue.
Tell us about your book then.
So this book is really an interesting book because although it's based on the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, and I wrote it because I wanted my children to be able to connect with their culture and their heritage, I wanted to bring out what the universal message is and for it to be relatable for Hindus and non-Hindus alike. And I think that's what's the really important point here, is that yes, we need BME characters for BME children, but we also need it for the mainstream because it's through books, which are a very powerful tool for giving children an understanding and an insight into different cultures and building bridges to create that respect and tolerance that we need so much in our society.
And do you think, because one of our interviewees there in the report said that she does think it has a knock-on effect in the way children interact with each other, the fact that there is a lack of representation in these books, would you agree with that? And it does have an actual effect in their day-to-day lives?
Well, I think if you have no understanding of a different culture and the way they do something, I think that limits your interaction. And that culture is embedded in very little subtle nuances of the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, the names that we call our aunts and our uncles. And that can often be beautifully embedded in a story, whilst also bringing out the, you know, the relatable messages of a story. And I think we need to get that balance of the common values that we all as humanity share, but also whilst celebrating our diverse culture and all of the individual nuances that make up each of our backgrounds.
Given some of the statistics in this report from the Centre for Literacy and Primary Education, and as we heard in the report there, the first study of its kind in the UK just this last year, it's been going for 30 years, a similar study in the US. That's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yes, and I think it does paint a very bleak picture, but the positive point is that we have the results now and we can start thinking about what we're going to do about it.
And it is getting better, you think, in terms of representation?
I think that the fact that we're talking about it and we're having conversations about it is the first step to bringing about, you know, a change in action. And I think BME characters also need to be featured more in mainstream stories. The other part of that report said that even of the books that do feature BME characters, over 50% of them are in settings such as war, racism, immigration, and those are very important issues. But we also need to see BME characters facing the same kind of ordinary life experiences that all children face, falling in love, sibling rivalry, so that they can identify with that child in that book based on, you know, the things that we share as all humanity.
Yeah, Sachdev Patel, thank you very much for coming to speak to us, and we should mention you're too modest to do it. Gita, the Battle of the Worlds is your book. Thank you for coming in. Cheers. This is Sky News. Coming up, Red Bull.